stench of blazing jet fuel and thick black smoke overwhelmed him. 3 deafening helicopters hovered overhead, beaming their spotlights onto the carnage below. A 4th could be seen circling a large perimeter, and now a squadron of F-15s streaked overhead, flying CAP. Despite the chilly night breeze, he could feel the intense heat of the roaring flames. Close his eyes, and he could easily be back in the Army times, back in the Gulf War, back on Iraq's highway of death, picking his way through the putrefying bodies and smoldering hulks of tanks, trucks, and other scorched remnants of Saddam Hussein's Republican Guard. It had been almost 2 decades since Marcus Jackson, now with the New York Times, had covered a hot war. It had been at least 6 or 7 years since he stopped waking up in the wee hours of the morning, drenched with sweat from yet another nightmare. His wife holding his shaking body. Like many men his age, he had signed up for the military service in the early 80s, not truly believing he'd ever see combat. And for the sake of his twin girls, who had just turned 5 the previous weekend in another slumber party he had missed, he prayed every night that he'd never have to witness the horrors of combat again. The White House beat was more than enough for him now, especially over the last few years, but in an instant it all came crashing back. Jackson was several miles back from the wreckage of Stagecoach and the G4. Prevented from exiting Press Bus 1, he could see a wall of police officers surrounding his bus and the others behind him, guns drawn. But with a front row seat, high-powered binoculars hanging from his neck, and a digital wireless phone in each hand, he was now one of the most valuable witnesses in the world. With one phone, Jackson repeatedly speed-dialed his assignment desk back in New York. Busy again, no luck. With the other phone, he quickly speed-dialed CNN in Atlanta, connecting immediately. Some kind of party was going on in the control room. Jackson could hear the night crew singing happy birthday to someone. Jackson shouted into the phone, "Josh and Marcus, I'm everything's on fire. I'm with the wait, I can't hear you. Hold on. Everybody, shut up." Jackson could hear the party in the control room die instantly as Josh Simon, CNN's overnight producer, shocked everybody with his uncharacteristic outburst. "All right, Marcus, what is it?" "I saw it all, Josh. The thing just came screaming down out of the sky and erupted into a fireball." "What? Whoa, what are you talking about?" "Some kind of kamikaze just attacked McPherson's motorcade." "Holy, it's total chaos." "Not again. It's bad, Josh. It's bad." "Where are you?" "We just left DIA. The whole road's on fire." "Unbelievable. You're the first to call in. Nothing's on the wires." I know. It literally just happened." "What about McPherson?" "I don't know. I can't tell. I'm looking at his car right now through binoculars. Cops are everywhere. The thing's upside down. They're trying to get the doors open. There's fire everywhere." "Marcus, we've got to get you on the air." "Hold on. Can you hold?" "Absolutely." Simon quickly explained to his team what they were about to report. He checked again. The story still wasn't on the AP or Reuters wires. It would be soon. Jackson could hear over his left shoulder as the Associated Press's Tom Perkins dictated an urgent bulletin to a night editor in Washington. He could also hear the gasp in the CNN control room back in Atlanta as Simon spoke. Just 29, Josh Simon was young but sharp, intense and already losing his hair. Too much stress, too many graveyard shifts, too many Marlboros. His superiors weren't yet convinced of his full potential. But to Jackson, who'd known him for years, Simon seemed to have a gift. He truly understood the power of live, breaking television news. He'd grown up with it, gone to school for it, sacrificed his marriage for it. He understood its style, its rhythm, its cadence. He knew how to tell a story visually, and when pictures weren't available, he knew how to capture a viewer through music and graphics and the tone of an anchor's voice. Now Jackson heard his friend on the other end of the line prepare his team to be the first to break the story to the entire world. "Josh, can you hear me?" "Hold on, Marcus. Bill, we're cutting in. Breaking news. I'll cue you as we go. It's huge. Stand by." "Camera 2, stand by. We're going to breaking news. Ready graphics. Cue music. Dirk, get me a map of Colorado." "Okay, everybody, this is it. Let's get it right. Going live. Stand by. 3, 2, 1, go." Simon's voice was calm and steady and professional. Jackson could hear a roundup of the day's financial news suddenly interrupted by the distinctive music. Then, "This is CNN breaking news." Even as a hardened, cynical battle-weary reporter, that very sound sent shivers down his spine. Simon dictated a lead-in as anchor Bill Blake flawlessly repeated every jarring word. Marcus, stand by, 1. For a moment, a hiss of static made it sound as though the phone had gone dead, but Jackson could tell he'd actually been patched through the what and was live on the air. Blake was already introducing him. On the line now from I-70 just outside of Denver. Mr. Jackson, can you hear me? Yes, Bill, I can. CNN is now reporting that the president's motorcade has just been attacked, apparently by a kamikaze, on the road leaving Denver International Airport. I understand you've witnessed the whole thing. What can you tell us? Bennett stared out the window. Ron Barshkevsky maneuvered the aging Mercedes through morning traffic and raced to the airport, but Bennett's mind was elsewhere. He needed information. What was happening? Was it true? How could it be? President McPherson couldn't be dead. He couldn't be. James McPherson was practically Bennett's godfather. More than any other man in Bennett's life except his own father, McPherson had taken a personal interest in his skills, his career, and his life, teaching him the tricks of the financial trade and treating him as much like a son as a protege. Back in the early 90s, when he'd first been hired by GSX, and before McPherson was elected governor, the young Bennett had often been surprised to be a regular guest in his boss's gorgeous Cherry Creek home, sometimes working deep into the night on some proposal or another, sometimes devouring Mrs. McPherson's incredible chocolate chip cookies, or shooting hoops with the girls in the driveway, or helping plot the CEO's political future. When McPherson began planning his first run for governor, Bennett was one of a dozen people in the room, despite the fact that the governor called him his resident Democrat, taking notes and helping draft policy papers and campaign speeches. When McPherson won his re-election campaign overwhelmingly, Bennett was one of only 6 other men in the room in the Denver hotel suite on election night, mapping out the road from Denver to Iowa to New Hampshire to the GOP convention. For some strange, inexplicable reason, he'd been invited to the inner circle, the inner sanctum, the circle of trust, as the McPhersons liked to joke. He'd become family in the process, not to mention a multimillionaire. Bennett closed his eyes and let himself sink into the rich, thick leather in the backseat of the Mercedes. He rubbed his eyes, now aching from the early stages of what felt like a sinus headache. He took a swig of water and could feel his throat getting worse. He reached for the window and opened it wide, his dark brown hair now whipping around in the incoming wind. The thrill of the Medexco deal was gone. He felt tired, achy, sluggish, his brain on mental overload. He soon found his thoughts drifting back a few years to the McPhersons' breathtaking lodge nestled high in Beaver Creek on the slope of the Rockies. He'd been invited to go skiing with the governor, his family, and Iverson. Instead, he'd found himself with an excruciating case of strep throat. Mrs. McPherson, he'd never quite felt right calling her Julie, though she'd always insisted, wrapped him up under heaps of wool blankets, gave him a steaming pot of Earl Grey tea, and left him to rest in the huge, quiet house, staring out at massive plate glass window overlooking some of the most beautiful mountains he'd ever seen. He could still see the snowy, cold white peaks and the thick, sturdy evergreens, and the hazy orange sunset, and the long, dark shadows in the valley, and the twinkling white lights of the family Christmas tree. He could still hear the howl of the bitter winds outside, the roaring crackle of the fire inside, and the gentle carols rising from tiny speakers hidden all over the house. Perhaps for the first time since hopping onto the Wall Street bullet train, he'd felt safe. The weight of the world, the weight of the massive deals, and the anticipation of the next global economic or financial crisis slowly slipped off his shoulders, and he'd slept and slept and slept. It was never built to be a fortress. The elegant 3-story white brick 19th century Victorian house on the southeast corner of 34th Street and Massachusetts Avenue in Washington, D.C. may have been built by and for the military, but it was not impregnable. Set on a lovely, hilly knoll surrounded by towering trees and within the gates of a calm and grassy compound, the Queen Anne-style structure, completed in April of 1893, began as the home of the various superintendents of the U.S. Naval Observatory until 1928, when it became the official home of the Chief of U.S. Naval Operations. In 1974, Congress designated the home the official residence for the Vice President of the United States. Nelson Rockefeller and his family entertained there, but it wasn't until 1977 that Walter Mondale and his family actually became the first second family to take up full-time residence. Now it was the home of Vice President William Harvard Oakes, and the stillness of the historic grounds was about to be shattered. Special agent in charge, Steve Sinclair, sat behind his desk at checkpoint 1, just inside the front doors of the residence. He'd just finished editing his oldest son's 10th grade term paper on Lincoln's address at Gettysburg and was settling down with a steaming cup of coffee, a fresh blueberry muffin, and the early edition of the Washington Post sports section when all three of his secure phones began ringing almost simultaneously. All six of the agents on post in the living room and dining room snapped to attention. Sinclair grabbed the red phone first. "Sinclair, go." Code red, shouted the watch commander beside Bud Norris at the Secret Service headquarters at Treasury. "Fire up the chopper and get Checkmate out of there now." "Copy that, hold one." Sinclair grabbed his wrist-mounted microphone and shouted, code red, evacuate, Marine 2, scramble. All six agents now had Uzis drawn and four blew past Sinclair up the stairs. One took up his position guarding the front door, while another moved to open the side kitchen door. 10 other agents now poured in through the kitchen from a guard station immediately adjacent to the residence, taking up positions at the windows throughout the first floor. Sinclair, meanwhile, hit two buttons, one white, one red, on the panel behind him. One instantly lit up the entire compound with blinding searchlights. The other set off a succession of deafening air horn blasts, declaring the compound at war. Sinclair quickly scanned all 12 television monitors in front of him and could see no immediate incoming threat. He did see two Marine pilots race from their guardhouse to the lead helicopter in the courtyard, jump inside, and plow through emergency procedures to get the chopper airborne ready in the next few seconds. "Home plate, what have you got?" Sinclair shouted into his secure line to the Secret Service Ops Center. "Gambit's motorcade is under fire. I repeat, motorcade under fire. Execute Deep Gopher. I repeat, execute Deep Gopher. Air support is on the way." Bowling Air Force Base in Washington, D.C. sprang to life. Emergency sirens and air horns suddenly jolted everyone awake. In an instant, night turned to day as huge spotlights flooded the elite base along the Potomac River. Moments later, Humvees were moving to block every entrance. Combat-ready Marines grabbed M16s as they bolted out of their barracks and to their posts. Above them, 10 crack pilots, all part of the executive flight detail, were lifting 3 Apache helicopter gunships and 2 forest green Marine transport helicopters off the ground and into a rescue formation. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. They had only a few seconds. Upstairs at the vice president's residence, agents turned the corner and shot down the hallway past the VP's study, past his den, past the empty kid's bedroom on the left to the master bedroom on the right at the end. Agents Chuck Kroll and Mike Martin burst in without knocking. "Sir, you need to come with us immediately." The flannel, pajama-clad vice president was barely awake, but it didn't matter. The 2 agents quickly hauled him out of bed and out of the room, leaving behind his terrified and disoriented wife. A 3rd agent grabbed the VP's always-packed emergency suitcase and briefcase and raced to follow the other 2 agents back down the stairs. The 4th agent stayed with the VP's wife to calm her down and explained that a helicopter would be coming to evacuate her momentarily. Marine 2 was now fully powered as the VP and his agents burst out the side door just 30 yards from the howling chopper. The VP's feet were barely touching the ground. 20 agents brandishing Uzis and Marines in full battle gear carrying locked and loaded M16s made a secure human corridor through which the agents dragged their protectee and literally threw him in through the side door of the chopper. Kroll followed and jumped in. Martin jumped in as well, slammed the door shut, and furiously slapped the pilots on the back. "Go, go, go," he screamed. Marine 2 lifted off in a formation with the 3 Apache helicopter gunships hovering overhead, and in a moment they were gone. From the instant Agent Sinclair's phone had first rung with the news of the code red, less than 3 minutes had elapsed. Now the whole world was about to know almost as much as he did. Back at the Secret Service Command Center in Washington, Director Bud Norris saw the CNN feed appear on one of the 5 large-screen video monitors before him and slammed his fist down on the console beside him. Norris held 2 phones to his head. One was a secure line to the FBI Operations Center. It was patched through to Director Scott Harris's bulletproof Chevy Tahoe, racing him back to his office at the Robert F. Kennedy Building on East Street Northwest. The other was an encrypted satellite link to the Secret Service Special Agent Jackie Sanchez on the scene in Denver, now in command of the rescue operation and trying desperately to break into the badly mangled, inverted limousine. As Norris quickly briefed Harris, his eyes fixed on another of the video monitors before him. This brought him images neither CNN nor anyone else had a live feed from the Apache helicopter over the crash site. He could see the image of a specially designed jaws of life saw now piercing through bulletproof doors of Stagecoach. He could see heavily armed agents surrounding the vehicle. He could see firefighters battling the blazing G4, and he could see Sanchez directing the action. Jackie, Norris barked. Yes, sir, Sanchez immediately replied. How much longer? Almost there, sir. Stand by. His briefcase beeped. He was getting an email. Bennett grabbed his leather briefcase and fished out his BlackBerry. A breaking news alert from AP. He scrolled down rapidly. McPherson motorcade attacked by kamikaze. Details were sketchy. A few minutes later, another beep, an update. The Secret Service had just evacuated the vice president from the Naval Observatory. The Speaker of the House had just been awakened by his security detail in Chicago, evacuated in an Air Force helicopter, and was now being taken to an undisclosed military base. Cabinet members were being taken to secure undisclosed locations as a precaution against any possible further attacks, according to an unnamed U.S. Secret Service official. Another beep, another update. CNN was now reporting that the Secret Service was taking bodies out of the president's limousine. Bodies? Bennett's throat burned. He suddenly felt nauseated. Bob, I've got a feeding frenzy here. Press Secretary Chuck Murray pressed his earpiece closer and stepped off of Press Bus 1 for a moment, away from the carnivores, within desperate for something real, something solid from White House Chief of Staff Bob Corsetti. But with the wind, the choppers, and the siren and emergency vehicles arriving from every direction, he could barely hear a thing. What about the president? What? Bob, we don't have a few minutes. I've got a bus full of cell phones about to report he might be dead. I know what he's saying. I was right next to him. What? Well, I'm seeing the exact same thing. Two? What? Yes, 2 bodies so far. Here comes the third right now. Who? Okay, fine. I'll talk to him. Murray suddenly realized he'd left his coat on the bus. Drenched with sweat, he was now shivering uncontrollably. Hello? Who's this? Agent Parker, this is Chuck Murray. What have we got? I need to know right now. Is he dead or alive? Bennett's BlackBerry beeped again. Email from London. John just heard the news, watching CNN. What do you know? I keep calling your cell phone but can't get through. Call me, Aaron. Erin McCoy was a Global Strategics International Communications Director, a fact she took pride in and liked to remind Bennett of every now and then. A UNC Chapel Hill grad in economics, with an MBA from Wharton, she was feisty, gorgeous, yet also inexplicably single, a fact Bennett liked to remind her of every now and then. Not that she had much time to date, much less marry. These days, she was working around the clock on the Israeli Medexco deal, and fast became one of the most valuable members of Bennett's team. He punched one button on his phone and got her on the first ring. McCoy, Aaron, it's John. You watching this? No, I'm with Ronnie on the way to the airport. What have you got? Not much, just what's on TV. We can't get anybody back in Denver, and no one in New York knows anything. You talked to Stu yet? Just for a moment. And? Bennett paused. Should he tell her? And it's bad. The president may be dead. Not that she wasn't already fearing the worst, but Bennett's words seemed to knock the breath out of her. Silence. Then suddenly, she re-engaged. Wait, hold on. What? Fox has pictures. Hold on. Bennett had been to McCoy's penthouse office several times and nicknamed it NORAD. High atop London, overlooking the Thames and Big Ben, McCoy and her team had created a high-tech financial war room wired up with the world's state-of-the-art communications equipment from shortwave radios and satellite dishes to high-speed internet access and fiber optic cables, capable of transmitting 30 million phone calls across the Atlantic in a single second. All of it allowed McCoy and her team to receive instantaneous reports from news services, financial markets, GSX staff, and other sources all over the planet. Know well the condition of thy flocks, read the tiny ceramic plaque beside her phone, and computer and always stocked jars of lollipops, all neatly arranged on her massive cherry desk, a desk once used by Churchill when he was a parliamentary backbencher and self-designated rabble-rouser. Bennett could picture McCoy and her staff piled into her office in the early hours of the British morning, simultaneously watching 10 wall mounted TV screens and working the phones. Aaron, what have you got? All right, hold on. They're zooming in. Come on, guys, get it in focus. Wait, oh no, oh no. What, Aaron? What is it? Norris didn't want the world to see anything, least of all these pictures. He guessed a Fox cameraman had somehow climbed atop his satellite truck and somehow scrambled atop one of the press buses. Either way, using a high powered zoom lens, the image he was capturing and beaming to the entire world was now zeroed in on the newly created hole in the side of Stagecoach. Secret Service agents could be seen beginning to carefully lift another lifeless body strapped to a wooden stretcher out of the car. Billowing smoke occasionally obscured the image, but no doubt this was powerful television and thus far an exclusive. Sanchez, stop everything. I repeat, stop your evacuation immediately, Norris was screaming into his phone. Stunned, everyone in the Secret Service Ops Center stared at him in horror. Nikon 1, this is home plate. Land in front of Stagecoach now. Get on the ground now. Go, go, go. Get on the ground now. Around the world, viewers suddenly found the gripping Fox and Sky News image completely obscured by a rapidly descending Denver police helicopter. The cameraman zoomed out, but to no avail. No camera, no reporter, no one could see what was unfolding. No one except Bud Norris and his colleagues at the White House, Pentagon, FBI, CIA. That was it. The secure images streaming in from the front-mounted video camera on the Apache helicopter, still hovering above the scene, once again providing them exclusive command of the situation. Norris finally gave the word, and the extraction effort resumed, quickly but carefully. More agents with M16s moved in to surround the rescue crew. Another ambulance now backed carefully into position, along with Dodgeball flanked by plainclothes agents brandishing Uzis. Sanchez, what have you got? Thomas and Stevens are bad, she told him, referring to Gambit's two body men, the two agents directly assigned to protecting the president's life, both unconscious, massive internal bleeding. We're about to medvac them out. Norris's stomach tightened. Burdett and Rodriguez just came out. Burdett's unconscious but stable. Rodriguez is a mess, sir. Very bad, Sanchez relayed, referring to Terry Burdett, the president's personal assistant, and Tommy Rodriguez, the limousine driver. Norris found himself getting angry. Yes, he cared about his own men. Yes, he cared about the president's staff, but none were his prime concern right now. Sanchez, what about Gambit? We'll know in a moment, sir. Marine 2 dropped fast and hard onto the south lawn of the White House. On the way down, the vice president, codenamed Checkmate by his protective detail, could see batteries of surface-to-air missiles out of their casings and ready for action on the roof of the White House and the old executive office building. He could also see Secret Service SWAT teams in black battle gear swarming the grounds. The instant the chopper touched the ground, a bulletproof black Suburban raced to its side. The chopper doors flew open, and Checkmate was thrown into one of the Suburban side doors. Agents piled in on top of him, and the Suburban peeled out, heading for the Oval Office. There, a platoon of agents surrounded the vehicle, Uzis drawn. They dragged Checkmate through the Oval Office, down the main hallway of the West Wing, through the doors of the secure stairway, down 2 flights of stairs, through a password-protected doorway, guarded by 2 armed Marines, down a long corridor, and into a POC, the Nuclear Blast-Proof Presidential Emergency Operations Center. Already waiting for him were National Security Advisor Marcia Kirkpatrick, Secretary of State Tucker Payne, and their top aides. All had landed minutes earlier at Andrews Air Force Base from a trip to Moscow. When their security details got the word of the mushrooming crisis, they immediately rushed the high-level diplomatic team to the White House. The massive 3-foot thick steel vault door slammed shut behind them. Only then did Kroll send out the word through his wrist-mounted microphone, "Checkmate is secure. I repeat, Checkmate is secure." "Director, it's Mr. Norris on line 1. By 3:27 a.m. Eastern, FBI Director Scott Harris was back in his 7th floor executive suite, joined by top aides crackling with nervous energy. "Bud, it's Scott. How's Gambit?" "I don't know yet. I'll know more in a minute. What have you got?" "Full Metal Jacket. We've lit up our whole network, pressing informants all over the globe. I've got the field team in Toronto headed to the airport and 2 more teams heading there from Buffalo and Boston. We just got off the phone with the Canadians. They're offering us their full assistance. Lot of good it does now. What's our tactical situation?" You've got me. I don't think we can assume this thing is over. I agree. But I don't have anything hard yet. They knew the timing, the car, the best moment to strike. They had to have people on the ground. To calibrate a flight from Toronto to be in the right place at the right time? Absolutely. It's a nightmare. You bet there's more of them. The question is where. I can flood Denver with agents. Do it. Send them into Colorado Springs and have them drive up. I'm keeping DIA shut down for now. Good. We'll do it. How are you going to move Gambit? I heard Marine One had mechanical trouble. It does. That's why we did the motorcade in the first place. You can't risk the roads now. You don't know who you can trust out there. I'm going to put him in one of the choppers. Sanchez will fly it out, flanked by the Apaches. And go where? Crystal Palace. Not back to Air Force One? I'm not taking him back there until I know it's secure. All right, what do you need from us? Just find out who did this. Home plate, I've got more, Sanchez told Norris over her satellite phone. On the video screen, Norris watched Sanchez move quickly, direct her team, reposition her men, and commandeer the police helicopter. Now he saw Sanchez hand her phone inside Stagecoach. John, it's Bud. Hey, boss, Moore said, groggy and in pain. Talk to me, John. Gambit's safe. Thank God. He's got a lot of cuts, bruises, mild concussion. He's pretty freaked out, but we've got him on sedatives and oxygen. We've got him immobilized, but we've checked him over pretty good. He's gonna be okay. Thank goodness for airbags. 5,000 agents and billions of dollars worth of the latest high-tech equipment and a president's life could actually be saved or lost during a terrorist attack by airbags? After 2 years off nicotine, Norris suddenly found himself craving a cigarette. John, I can't even tell you. Bud, it's Mac. Is this another one of your exercises? At first, Morris was taken aback at hearing McPherson's voice. Then he began laughing, more from pent-up nervous energy than the president's lame but noble attempt at humor. The man's voice faltered, but his spirit seemed strong. Yes, sir. Didn't you get the memo? McPherson laughed weakly, then began to cough. Sir, are you? But now it was Moore back on the line. Are we clear to move him, sir? Absolutely. Do it. Norris and his team watched the Apache video feed as the agents on the ground now quickly, carefully, professionally extracted Gambit's stretcher from Stagecoach and positioned him in the back of the police helicopter. Sanchez positioned herself in the pilot's seat beside another agent, once an Army Reserve pilot. Agents carefully helped Moore climb into the chopper along with 2 other plainclothes agents from Dodgeball, one a specially trained medic. As the chopper began to lift off, it was flanked by the 2 Apaches, led by the other police helicopter, flown by and packed with agents, and covered by a squadron of F-15s. On the ground, Secret Service vehicles and police cars began peeling away from the scene, going back to the airport to guard Air Force One. A few minutes later, a dozen more police and National Guard helicopters landed to carry away agents and top White House staff. Back in Washington, Norris turned to his team and looked each one in the eye. Gambit is alive. The op center erupted with applause. People began to breathe for the first time in hours. Put me in all frequencies, Norris told his deputies. Ball players, this is home plate. We've got good news. Gambit is alive. I repeat, Gambit is alive. He paused just for a moment to let the words sink in, then quickly continued. Checkmate is also secure, as is Megaphone. We haven't lost any principle, not yet, but it was close. And I, for one, don't think this thing is over, not by a long shot. So listen up. We're now at ThreatCon Delta. We don't know what's out there. You may have your suspicions about who did this, but remember, that's not our mission, not tonight. Our mission is to make sure the inmates don't rule the asylum. Our mission is vigilance, not vengeance. Everyone got that? So stay on your toes, stay alert out there, and may God help us.